Hi there, Andrew here. Welcome to the finale of Debut Review. For the past several weeks I've been watching the first episode of all the new anime from the spring 2017 season and examining how successful they were in convincing me to keep watching the show. All in all, I watched 23 different debut episodes, and almost half of them convinced me to at least watch episode 2. So in this final installment of Debut Review, at least for this season, I may do it again next season, who knows, I'm going to talk about the shows that I kept watching and what I think about them so far. So far, because as of this recording, I don't think any of them are actually done yet. So the first one I watched at least episode 2 of was Love Tyrant. I've seen about, 6-7 episodes of this now. I initially thought it was pretty funny, and I still do. As happens with a lot of comedy shows, it falls into the trap of getting a little samey, telling the same jokes over and over. It has a yandere character who keeps stabbing her bow. They're all immortal because a Cupid shot him with the... Well, actually, she has a Death Note parody called the Love Note, so she writes couples in her love note, and they become couples. They also become immortal when she's in the love polygon, because there's a ton of them. It's a weird show. It's an interesting premise. It's got some really out there characters. And to the show's credit, it does a fairly decent job of continually adding new twists and new elements to keep things interesting. It does, as I said, fall into the trap of relying on the same jokes over and over. It's a show that I enjoy well enough when I watch it, but it's not one that I'd run out and rush to buy on DVD, or would even really full-throatedly recommend to anyone. It's certainly good for the occasional laugh. It's okay. I don't know if I will watch the entire series. For me, it's starting to lose its appeal around episode 6, 7, somewhere around there. But I may stick with it. It actually does manage to continue doing some interesting things, so Love Tyrant. The next one, Kado, The Right Answer. Now, if you watched my debut review for Kado, you'll know that I was not interested in continuing to watch the show. That particular episode, my debut review for Kado, was by far the most viewed episode of this series. Most of my debut, not a terribly popular series, although I'm glad for those of you who enjoy it, but most of the episodes are watched by about 100-some people. That one is well over 1,000 views. And a lot of people said, dude, you really need to keep watching this show. It's great. Episode 0, the one you watched, not a great place to start. Episode 1 is where you ideally would have wanted to start. I mean, not that I knew that at the time. I had to kind of guess between episode 0 and 1, so I'm like, episode 0, I guess. So I watched episode 1, and it honestly didn't do anything for me. But it was so passionately recommended to me by so many people. I said, all right, well, let's stick this out a little bit. So I watched episode 2, and it really, honestly, didn't do anything to grab me. And at that point, I was like, oh dear, I actually really don't want to keep watching, but let's give it another episode. So I watched episode 3, and episode 3 it still didn't grab me. But I gave it one more episode. I watched episode 4, and to episode 4's credit, it actually does something interesting, and I'll get to that in a moment. But at that point, it really was not enough to... It's just not doing it for me. I'm so sorry. I know a lot of you are super fans. I don't think it's a bad show. Not at all. I absolutely do not think that Kado the Right Answer is a bad show. I don't. It's just not engaging me. I think the reason why the show isn't hooking me is there's almost no conflict in the show. In the first episode, a giant Borg Cube, it looks like the Hellraiser puzzle box, lands in Japan, and lands right on top of an airplane full of people. And the first episode is shot from the perspective of everyone outside the cube. Now, if you read the show description, you already know that the people inside are fine, and that this is an alien dude who wants to talk with the humans, and our protagonist is the guy who brokers peace, I guess, between the alien and the humans. So you already know that everyone in there is fine. Not really the fault of the show, I suppose, but it really kills any tension. Because Japan is like, oh no, big Borg Cube, we need to drill a hole inside and see if our people are alright, or if they got smushed. But you already know that everyone inside is fine. So, I mean, if I had never read the show description, maybe I would have been a bit more engaged, but... So episode 2 turns it into the perspective of the people inside the Borg Cube. And everyone's fine. They meet the alien guy, and he seems to be a chill dude. Does not seem to be malicious, malevolent, have ill intent. Just seems to be a fine guy. No one's in any danger. Everyone can leave in a month. There's some weird alien explanation for why they can't just leave now, but it's going to take 29 or 30 days or something like that to do the proper calculations to let everyone out of the cube. Okay, sure, fine. Is the alien dangerous? No, doesn't seem to be. Are the people going stir-crazy and at each other's throats? No, everyone seems kind of chill. Are there enough resources for them to survive in the cube before they're let out? Yeah, the cube has the technology to infinitely replicate food and water and stuff. So, are they in danger of, like, the military blowing up the cube before they realize that the people are alive and well inside? Is it going to be this, oh gosh, they're going to blow us up before we can get out of the cube? No. Because, one, the military can't make a single dent in the cube, so there is no danger there. And two, the alien guy comes out of the cube and says, hey, I want to talk to y'all. So there's no conflict, there's no tension. It's basically just a major inconvenience for about 250 people, which is not that interesting to me. So, also, so we're having a negotiation between the alien and the humans. Do these go poorly? No, actually, they go just fine. Does the alien have ill intent? No, he really seems to, at least so far, just want to give the world better energy technology. Altruism. Even the negotiations aren't really negotiations. I mean, the alien's a pretty chill, laid-back guy. He says, I expect this to happen in 6 seconds. And they say, no, that's impossible. And he says, oh, okay. A minute? Nope. 5 minutes? No. An hour? Nope. 3 hours. They're like, we can do it in 3 hours. Alien says, okay then. So, yeah. They say we should have the negotiations out in the open and have it broadcast on all the media so we don't hide this. Okay, so no one's worried about conspiracy theories. Are they going to be shot at by snipers? No. Is there any conflict in this show at all? I mean, everything seems fine. The people are fine. They've got food and water. They're a little bored. They're inconvenienced, but they're all going to get out in a month. Alien here means no ill intent, at least so far in the show. No one's going to bomb anybody. No one's fighting anybody. No one's really angry at anybody. All the characters seem to be pretty damn passive. Everyone's just kind of swinging with it. But in episode 4, something interesting happens. The alien is trying to give them, says, here's a bunch of batteries that have infinite energy. And Japan says, oh, batteries with infinite energy. Neat. And the United Nations says, turn over all the batteries right bloody now, or we will levy sanctions against Japan. We will probably bomb you too. Or at least engage in some military action against you. Oh. Conflict! Okay. That's probably something that would happen. The UN doesn't want Japan to have all the power, both literally and figuratively. And Japan is like, you know, the UN has a point, but on the other hand, the UN probably shouldn't have all these batteries either. Because that's a bad idea. Okay, we've actually got something interesting going on here. Unfortunately, the show doesn't seem to be that... It's more of like a side note. It doesn't seem to be the focus of the show. So, let me know in the comments what really engages you and interests you about this show. I'd be really interested to know, because it doesn't... It's, again, not a bad show. It's not even boring. It's just... for me, not engaging. It doesn't do enough to say, ooh, this is interesting, gotta see what happens next. I'm just watching it and go, nah, I'd honestly rather go do something else than watch the next episode. So, Kado, the right answer. Not a show I would have continued watching on my own, but I did continue watching thanks to your recommendations, and then stopped watching because it's just not doing it for me. So next on the list is The World Yamazukan, which is that really short form, it's about 4 minutes long, kind of Tales from the Crypt episodes where spooky things like aliens, flying saucers, monster snowmen that eat little children. It's a great premise for a show, just a 4-minute horror story that you might hear around the campfire, you know? It's a great idea, but what interests me about this show so much, and I've seen every episode that's aired so far, is, with really one exception, every single episode does something that shoots itself in its own foot. If you saw my review for the first episode of World Yamazukan, you'll understand what I'm talking about. The twist is not satisfying, and some of the details leading up to the twist don't make any sense. And every episode, with very, very few exceptions, has at least one thing that just undercuts the entire episode. A lot of these episodes are based on a really good idea, but then it has some storytelling issue which just chops its legs out from underneath it. I may actually do a series of videos examining each episode of The World Yamazukan and where I feel each one goes wrong. Except I think episode 8. Episode 8 is pretty damn solid. If I wanted to nitpick, it actually goes on a little long, but a little longer than necessary, but overall solid. So I'm going to try to find the time to do that, because I think it's really interesting to look at I love the format. I love horror. I love short form. I love anthology. That's checking all my boxes. But man, almost every single episode just does something phenomenally bad from a storytelling or mechanics point of view. So hopefully I get the chance to talk about that more in the future. Next is Alice in Zoroku, which pretty good show. This one I'd actually recommend checking out. It's kind of like Elfen Lied, not really sure, in that there are girls with powers that are being kept by some secret underground military organization that want to weaponize them, and then one escapes and then finds love and a real family, but the bad guys are still out to get her, and her presence is endangering the ones she now loves. It's that kind of story. It's a good, solid foundation for a story, and it actually works here too. The first 5 episodes are pretty damn good. The characters, especially Old Mans Otaku, is just an absolute hoot to watch. And the powers of the girls are really unique and fun and well presented. Where it runs into trouble for me is the show kind of ends at episode 5. Spoilers, I guess, except this is just what happens in episode 5. They kind of beat the bad guys, and the shady underground government weaponizing program with the girls is disbanded, and the girls are all freed and, like, put in foster families, and everything's hunky-dory. Not totally sure where the story is going from here, because it seems to have ended. What a twist, right? Episodes like 6 and 7, where Mans Otaku really bogs down for me is when it's not doing the interesting story stuff, when it's doing the slice of life. Sana, I think her name is trying to learn what it means to be human and belong to a family and exist in a society of actual people. That could be some interesting stuff, but in my opinion, they go way too far with the sugary, sweet, oh my gosh, she's so cute, waffle kind of. It turns my stomach. It's so saccharine sweet. It goes too far in that direction. It does pull itself back whenever it gets back into actual plot, but the stuff with Sana trying to figure out her place in the world is not as interesting as it should be. Or rather, it's a tad off-putting just with the way it's rendered. It's just too cutesy for me. I think I'll keep watching this one just to see where it ultimately goes, but it's a show that when it's not focusing on the main through line of its plot starts losing me a bit. Overall, though, I recommend checking it out. There's a lot of good stuff in this one. Next is The Laughing Salesman, which is another kind of Tales from the Crypt-esque type of episode where the titular laughing salesman gives people what they really want, and then the people do something stupid, and he takes their souls, or something like that, you know? What I had a problem with in the first episode was the laughing salesman is usually in Tales from the Crypt. The twist is about comeuppance. The people who star in the episodes are usually bad people or do something really terrible that they pay for by the end in an ironic fashion. The two stories that are in the initial episode of The Laughing Salesman aren't satisfying, for me anyway, because neither of the characters are really bad people who asked for it or had it coming. It just comes off as mean. So I watched episode 2, and that seems to just be how the show works. The laughing salesman himself, itself, what is it? Who knows? Just seems to be kind of a dick. It doesn't seem to be out to dispense ironic justice. Is just kind of mean. It's like, hey, there's a person, I'll give them everything they want, but I won't give them the boundaries or the rules or the caveats or stipulations of my gift, and when they break it, I'm going to ruin their lives. Ha! Or actually, if you laugh like the laughing salesman, it's more like, oh, it's kind of how he laughs. So, I only watched the second episode because, I mean, if you're into that, if you just, I guess there's a certain amount of schadenfreude that you can get from this show, but for me it was unsatisfying because I never felt the characters deserved their fates, at least in the 4 stories you see in the first 2 episodes. So, the next one that I kept watching is Sakura Quest. Okay, let me interrupt myself. Let me come in here and say that's gone on long enough. So, I'll continue with the rest of the shows I've seen this season in part 2 of the debut review finale. See you then.